Hello friends, welcome to the Take Better Photos channel. We're here with another video. And in this video, we'll be comparing two newly released photo editors, ON1 Photo Raw 2023 and DXO PhotoLab 6. And we're going to give a conclusion on which one is the better RAW editor. So as you can see here, ON1 Raw 2023 was released just this month, October 11, 2022. With new features and an array of powerful new AI tools. DXO was also released in the same month, October 5, 2022, with its standout feature, D' XD. So it's good to see all these top RAW editors updating their features, but that requires us to also update our reviews to find out which one is the right one for you. So when buying your softwares, cost is always an issue, and ON1 has a very aggressive price of $99 US, no subscription, all the features built in, while DXO PhotoLab 6 costs $219 US, which is twice the price of ON1. So there's a lot of justification needed by DXO whether their feature set and performance justifies double the price of ON1 Photo Raw 2023. So as usual, we are going to be comparing the photo editor in terms of its photo management, global and local adjustments, and overall performance to make our decision on which one is the best editor. So this will be an interesting one. So let's start off with its photo management features. So let's start off with ON1's photo management features. So with ON1 Photo Raw, it has a typical interface for photo management where it represents each image in thumbnails. You can increase the thumbnail size here. You can also view the folders here. It's represented by this icon. So if you want to create a folder, you could do that in this file browser. Right, so you can actually just copy a bunch of images here. Let's say this. You can just shift click here to select a bunch. Right click and copy. Okay, you can go to this folder and just paste it in. Alright, so file management features that is supported. So creating folders, moving, deleting, that's all supported by ON1, as you would expect. You can also do a search with this button here and you can click an add field. Let's just say I want to search for all of the ARW files, and you can see that it will actually do the search like so. So pretty comprehensive search options here. Alright, so now let's go to DXO's photo browsing. So one thing about DXO's photo browsing, it does have a much more attractive interface compared to ON1's. And the interface is a little bit more fluid. So you can make this larger if you wish. You can move this up. You can actually make this larger as well with that animating look. Just like ON1, it also supports creating folders, moving and copying images to and from the folders. As you can see here, you could also add ratings to all of these things. Okay, so you can also filter via labels, which is pretty useful. You can also do searches here. So what's interesting here is you can actually search for, let's say, the camera make. So if you type here, let's say Sony, you can see that it's a little bit nicer in the sense that there's like a drop down here. So pretty comprehensive, a simpler interface for DXO, but they more or less have similar functionality. Alright, so let's just demonstrate its global editing functionality. So we can have a feel for its strengths and its weaknesses. So let's start off with editing this photo here. So what I like about this photo, it has a very nice sunset, very detailed sky, but this foreground here is underexposed. So we can enhance this via the shadow adjustment. Let's increase that. Okay, so you can see one nice thing about ON1 is the colors are very natural. Doesn't look cheesy at all. There's not artifacts to be seen. So very vivid colors as well. And the contrast is nicely maintained. But the main problem with this adjustment, my main issue with this is once you adjust a shadow, it's actually including a lot of the midtones and highlight areas. Which for this looks fine, but I'd rather it didn't touch this. And it'd be smart enough to recognize that the shadow area is really this portion right here. So that is my main issue with this. ON1 has very comprehensive adjustment tools. It has a very nice haze adjustment, as you can see here, which will make the dull portions of the image pop, as you can see. you want to take care with the haze adjustment because it can become very unnatural. So as you can see, it has a lot of tools, a lot of tools. You have the temperature adjustment as well here, right in the panel. Very easy to access the global panel as well. Now let's also adjust the highlights adjustment here. So maybe the sky, we want to darken it a little bit. You can do that. So you can see that the highlight is being targeted. So the sun, it's basically focused on the sun area here. Okay. It does have a structure adjustment as well. All right. So that is pretty much the edit of ON1. Now, what are some of the cons of ON1? So I already mentioned the shadow adjustment hits pretty much the highlights and the midtones. Okay, so that's something which is an issue. It's an issue. We would like our raw editors to be smarter about which tones they are targeting. Another issue is some of its tools are really ineffective. So for example, it's blacks tool. If I want to just bring out the detail in these very dark areas here with the blacks, you can see it doesn't really do a good job. It just washes the whole thing out. So better raw editors would do a better job of giving back detail here in the blacks area. So this blacks adjustment is just not doing it. Same for this midtones adjustment here, which doesn't really do much. It's not really that useful. So I would say its most useful tools would be the highlights and its shadows adjustment. Another thing which I'd like to say about ON1, which is really good, is it did a great job of correcting the distortion automatically. This is something we might not appreciate, but if you actually go into lens correction, you can see that the original raw image here looked like that, okay? Because this was shot with an RX 100 Mark VI. So there's a lot of distortion which needs to be corrected. That was done automatically. I would just want to give proper benefit to ON1 for correcting that, and it did so very nicely. So let's go to DXO PhotoLab 6. So for DXO PhotoLab 6, it would also correct this adjustment automatically, but I actually set it to off. So if you want to set it to automatically correct, you can go into the geometry panel here, this geometry panel, and just turn on distortion. And you can see that it did correct it, though it's not as good as ON1 because it still has a little bit of the vignetting here. So let's go on and look at the global adjustments. All right, so this is basically the shadow adjustment. Let's brighten it up. Okay, so as you can see here, brightening up with the DXO PhotoLab 6, you can see it is a lot more targeted in the sense where it does not affect the skies as much as ON1. So a lot more targeted, and it's able to bring out more detail without affecting the sky as much. So DXO also has very vivid colors. You can see very nice colors. It has also best-in-class noise removal as well. So if you can see, this image is pretty noisy, but if you want to remove the noise, it's pretty easy with DXO as long as it's a raw file. So if you can go into the detail panel here, you just choose D' XD, which is their latest and greatest, and you can see how much it has improved. Now, this interface might not always be very accurate. So what you want to do is use the magnifier tool here. Okay, so if I focus in on a portion, let's just say this lady here. So if you want to remove the noise, just show you what it looks like. So you can see that it is very noisy here, right? It is very noisy, right? But once you turn on denoising, there, you can see how much it is cleaned up, right? It might not show very well here. It will actually show its best in the final image, right? But its noise reduction is really top class. Check out my previous videos in my D' XD review, where I go into more detail on that. One nice thing about DXO's tone adjustments, even though there's much less than ON1, is their tone adjustments are pretty effective. So, for example, if I want to reduce the darkness of this sky, all right, globally, right, I could do that through the highlights adjustment, which might look okay, right? You can see it looks fine. Or you could also use the mid-tone adjustment here, which I think looks better. So there is a much more visually pleasing look to the adjustments of DXO. So I'm just going to use the mid-tone adjustment there. Its blacks adjustment also much more effective, as you can see. Though you want to use this sparingly because it might look a little bit cheesy. But definitely you can see how much detail that's brought out in this foreground here. Even I don't want it to be that brighten up, but it is there and it looks better than ON1's black tool. Another nice thing about DXO is it has top class haze reduction. Even though ON1's haze reduction is one of the best, DXO I think is really at the top. So just to demonstrate that, if I open up clear view here, so you can see how nicely clear view will actually enhance a very dull looking scene. So you of course don't want to overdo this, right? So you can just put a little bit of this. It has also a superior micro contrast adjustment. So the equivalent of this in ON1 is the structure adjustment. But you can see if I turn on the micro contrast, you see this. You can see that it does a better job of evenly putting detail in both the foreground and the sky. So it is a much more pleasing look about it. All right. Even though you don't want to, again, overdo this. You don't want to go overdo it like this, right? But just a little bit, I think, goes a long way to enhancing the image. So that's DXO's global adjustments. How about local adjustments? So let us go back to ON1 here. So this is the global adjustment of ON1. By the way, ON1 also has a fantastic noise reduction, one of the best out there. Just want to highlight that comparison. Okay, but now let's go on to local adjustments. So if you want the more refined adjustment, it's always best to do the adjustments separately. And so to create proper local adjustments, you need proper masking brush. So in ON1 Photo Raw 2023, they have this new Super Select brush, which uses AI to allow you to select by just pointing and clicking. So let me just demonstrate that. So I'm just going to click Super Select here. And you can see that it automatically detects various aspects of the image. See that? So there's an AI involved here. So you can just by one click make these selections. So let's just do that. I'm going to click this, various portions here. So just pointing and clicking. You don't have to brush or do anything like that. And so once you're done with that, you can just right click it and then just apply a preset here, which you can further adjust. But this one will be a lighten preset here. Okay, so we can adjust the shadows as well here, like so. Okay, like so. And then we can also adjust the structure here. There. All right, so that is the adjustment. Now the main problem with this adjustment is actually, if you look carefully here, right? If I adjust the exposure, let me just zoom in here. You can see that the AI does make mistakes in the way it does the masking. So you can see there's a lot of halos here, which you need to correct. Now, ON1 does provide a refine tool, which I'm going to use now to reduce the halos here. So I'm just going to choose paint out. I'm going to make sure that this is on the refine brush. And then I'm just going to brush on the edges here. Okay, so we hope that that will be reduced. Okay, so it's basically hit or miss. Sometimes it does get reduced and sometimes it does not. Okay, so like this lady here. Okay, so that's the issue with ON1. Some of the masking by the AI does not work properly in the sense that there may be some halos still which you have to do work on. Okay, so I'm just going to reset this first. Okay, so there is an alternative to this Super Select. If that's not working for you, you can also choose its standard masking brush, which has edge detection, and that is the perfect brush. So I'm gonna try this now. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is just make this bigger. Okay, and then the feathering, you can actually adjust the feathering here. Okay, I'll just make the feathering a little bit smaller. Okay, and then I'm gonna set the paint, this thing to paint. Okay, and then this will actually have some edge detection built in. Okay, so you can also press Control to sort of fix the point, that color that you want to target. So you can see the perfect brush does its job, but in certain cases it has a hard time sometimes selecting certain parts. Like you can see here, it's clear I'm already brushing on this, but it is not affecting it. So I have to like keep on doing it until I get it. So it's a little bit tougher to work with. Okay, and you can see still that there are still halos, some slight halos here, but I think it is better than before. Another issue with the perfect brush, it is definitely slower than some other competitors. So it does tend to lag. Like now, you can see as I'm moving the mouse, it will lag. It'll take a few seconds before it will move again. Okay, so that is an issue. Okay, anyway, that seems to be good enough. So let's just go ahead and make the adjustments. I'm just going to lighten this here. And then I'm just going to lighten will basically use a preset, but you don't have to follow this preset. You can just adjust it with the shadows as well here. Another nice thing about ON1 is it does support masking operations. So if I want to just target these highlights, meaning the sky, I can do that. So all I need to do is just click add adjustment to add a new layer, right? Then I can just copy the mask here. Okay, let me just copy the previous mask, this one. Just click copy. Okay, so it's gonna just copy the thing. There's a little bit of a lag, meaning there will be a little bit of a delay as it is copying the image. Alright, so I just copied the mask. Now that took longer than expected. So you can go to the new layer here. Okay, and then just paste this mask. And then just invert it to target the sky. So we're just gonna invert this. Alright, and so I'm just gonna go back here. So I'm gonna use maybe maybe I'm just gonna use let's see, the mid-tone adjustment doesn't really works okay a little bit. Highlight adjustment here. A little bit of the exposure maybe. And then we can actually use a bit of the haze adjustment here. Maybe just a little bit. So that is the adjustment for ON1. I think pretty good, right? Pretty natural looking. Okay, so that is the adjustment. This is the before and the after. Before and the after. Alright, so that was local adjustments in ON1. Let's now move on to DXO and see how the local adjustments work. Okay, so let's just go and do local adjustments with DXO. So let me just go back and fix the distortion here. Alright, and then for local adjustments, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is click on this local adjustments button here. And that basically allows you to use the masking brushes. So all you need to do is right click, and then you can see here an option for auto mask, which is what most people would use, right? So you can just press Control and make the brush a little bit bigger. And so you can go ahead and just do the brush like so. Now you can see that the mask will actually spill over, but the edges are actually being detected. Okay, so the mask is done. Now you might say, how do I know that the edges were properly detected? Well, you can actually just adjust the exposure here to figure it out. So if I adjust the exposure, right? So you can see that more or less the edges were properly detected. You can see that the orange part here, the sky, was not brightened at all. So it did detect the edges properly. So let's just adjust the shadows here, or the midtones. Let's see if that will work. Oh no, it didn't work. Okay, so let's just use the shadow adjustment here. There you go. So the shadow adjustment nicely brightens up this portion here. Now another powerful thing about DXO is its micro contrast. It also works with local adjustments. So if I enhance this a little bit, I'll add a little bit more detail to the scene. Like so. Okay? So there, and it maintains very nice color all throughout as well. So another nice thing about DXO is it does support mask operations. So you just go into this local adjustments panel. You can see that this layer has already been created. So if you want to do one for the sky, you can also just duplicate this and invert it. So let's just duplicate it first. Duplicate. And so this is the second mask now. And then we're going to invert it. Okay. So now this second mask, as you can see, is triggered. Okay, but it's actually not perfect. So let's go ahead and edit that. So I'm just going to go here with my brush again. So that is done. And then let's just do the adjustments now. So the adjustments for local adjustments should be with this widget, not here, not in this panel. This panel is always for global. So it's very clear which one you are actually adjusting. All right. The only problem with this is this widget might be a little bit small on a laptop or what. So that's always a negative. But let's go ahead and reduce the highlight. And I said that the mid-tone adjustment is the best one for this. So let's just do that. There you go. So you see it's more effective in terms of the mid-tone adjustment. And a nice thing about this, it also supports the clear view haze removal adjustment. Okay, so just have to enhance that. All right, so that is the adjustment. That is the before and the after. Before and the after. Alright, so let's just compare the two. This is ON1's edit, and this is DXO's edit. So, what's the bottom line? So based on what I've seen here, despite its higher price, I believe the better RAW editor is clearly DXO PhotoLab 6 for 3 reasons. Number 1, I think it has a better design interface. Its photo manager is easier to use. Number 2, it has more targeted and effective editing tools in general. It has better noise reduction, better shadow adjustment, and better haze adjustment as well. And number 3, I think its masking is much faster and is more precise, which is very important when doing local adjustments. But as always, don't take my word for it. You can see it from the final output, and you can make the judge which one you prefer. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. Do you agree or disagree? I'd love to hear from you. And do let me know which editor you like to use. Both of these editors are excellent, and I don't think you can go wrong with either one. In any case, to help keep the videos coming, do help us out by subscribing, liking, and sharing this content. Until the next video, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.